Hi, am I audible? Awesome. So I don't know if afternoon is the right time to learn. Like most of your EdTech users don't learn during afternoon. So the purpose of this conversation will be to unlearn a lot, right? We'll go through some frameworks. We'll understand how learners think, but largely what we'll be doing is unlearning and questioning. So at the end of the talk, a great outcome would be if you are asking right questions, and that could perhaps be a good success. Before I move ahead, just a quick show of hands. How many of you are either from product or technology or work with product? Okay, good. So a bit about me. I'm co-founder at Able. Prior lives, I've been managing product for Udacity. Udacity happens to be a higher EdTech learning platform. Prior to that, I was managing product for Playmint, which is an AI training data crowdsourcing platform. So largely in the last 5 years, I've been building products on how to learn, how to earn, and so on and so forth. So spent a considerable amount of time thinking about learners, thinking about how they think about education. So it's the same story for all edtechs, right? It starts with the founder who has a great idea about a great course and launches it and gets great traction, right? If you go back, think about all great edtech platforms, Byju's, Coursera, edX, all have the same story. But what happens next? It gets hard to get and retain users, right? We have all the same stories, long sales cycles. I'm hearing more than a month now it's taking to close new customers. Poor completion rates. MOOCs, massive open online courses, have average completion rate of 3%, and obviously high CACs. Yesterday I was talking to somebody and I heard a CAC of more than ₹1 lakh. So something's going on here, right? Let's figure out what. So before that, essentially the question that we need to ask is, are your existing learners happy, right? So happiness is always inside, but we're looking outside. Teams are running after new customers, new users. Your founders and CEOs are perhaps running for new investors, and those investors are perhaps running after new companies outside the portfolio. But happiness is inside, right? So what's happening with the learners you have acquired? What is happening with the customers that are already spending a considerable amount of time with you, right? So essentially, the problem is low NPS, right? It actually boils down somewhere there. That high CAC is actually correlated to low NPS. Now, we can figure out ways. Now the market is nascent and we're still picking up, but you will almost always find that current set of users have the most amount of authority in terms of defining how your brand is, and especially in education, right? It's a brand driven industry, so it becomes extremely important to talk about NPS a little bit. But our NPS is great, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's no company that says that my NPS is low, right? So I wanted to debunk this a little bit before I move forward. See, when I say NPS, just mentally translate into learner happiness, learner satisfaction, right? Why is that? Because your retention is a truth that's happening. You can see your NPS is just a survey. You are asking questions, people are answering them, right? So there's a lot of difference between them. And so why it is important to sort of also go back, I can perhaps sit with anybody who thinks that their NPS is really good while their retention is bad. It is actually very paradoxical. What you're saying is that my learners or my users are absolutely happy about my product, and yet they don't want to use it. So that is paradoxical. So that's why whenever I say NPS, whenever you think about it, translate it into learner satisfaction, learner happiness more than anything else. Not exactly the rating that you are getting through your product. So when we have to fix NPS or we have to fix retention, the biggest obsession in EdTech industry is around content, right? I'm pretty sure that's how it is marketed. That's how product people think about it. That okay, we should have more engaging content. That's how we should we will be able to improve retention, right? And how perhaps we should get more teachers, or perhaps our teacher quality needs to improve, and so on and so forth, right? That's wrong. And this session is all about that. How being obsessed with content as the only lever to improve your retention and NPS is actually the main cause why EdTech is not is having high CACs, low NPS, low retentions, etc. So allow me to paint this wonderful dichotomy here, right? In this world of products, there are two major categories. One are consumption products, and the other ones are investment products. Consumption products, example, food tech, Swiggy, making your job easy by doing a lot of work for you, right? Helps you choose the right dish, then perhaps does all the hard work of bringing food in 15 minutes, 20 minutes to your door. Investment products, example, fitness apps, right? They can't lose weight for you, right? At the end of the day, you have to do the crunches. You have to be consistent. You cannot, the app cannot do the work for you, right? So understand the fundamental dichotomy. The way these products work is that sit and relax, I'm going to do the hard work for you. While the other set of products, investment products like fitness, mental health, EdTech, skill tech, all of that are not should not fundamentally be designed with this lens. They are essentially incentivized to help you do the hard work so that you see the improvement, right? So getting fit is not about watching motivational videos, right? It's about doing the exercises. And similarly, getting skilled is not about watching videos. It's actually about doing the work, right? Learning by doing. Because otherwise, other than that, you are into edutainment industry, right? That's a different thing. You can create another Discovery Channel. That's a valid business to be in. But if you're thinking that your learners are not improving, not giving NPS, and trying to improve content as a result of it, it won't work, right? So what does work then, right? Live classes, amazing teachers, community of fellow learners. Any guesses? What does a learner, like what does it take to make a learner happy? Any wild guesses? Sorry? Certificates. Anything else? Sorry? No assessments. Okay, great. This is what makes them happy. A better version of themselves, right? So let's take a step back here and understand what I'm trying to say. People said, certificates. What does certificate actually means? A stamp that you are better than others, right? So what essentially I'm trying to paint is that every person who is downloading a fitness app, who's downloading an EdTech app, is fundamentally trying to be a better person, right? Socioeconomically, getting a better job, getting a better promotion, getting incentive, getting good scores in their exams, whatever be the case, they're trying to be a better version of themselves. I don't know if you guys have heard of this theory called jobs to be done framework, which is essentially about consumers hire products to do their job, right? And to make a better version of themselves. So essentially, if the learners are not seeing improvement in them, they will leave. And that's the core reason why this industry has low retention, low graduation rates, low NPS, because most learners don't see the change in them, and then that's why they don't go out and talk about it. I've been a Healthify Me user in the last 4 weeks. I can sort of sit with, and I'm extremely happy. I can sort of sit with you folks and actually help you download the app and get through it. Why? Because I'm seeing the improvement, right? But if that improvement is not visible, I'm not going to talk about it. So the few steps when it comes to the whole EdTech landscape: knowledge, skills, and attitude. Knowledge happens to be the simplest, easiest part of the whole puzzle, right? It's about solving for information asymmetry. I don't know about a subject. But the skills are the major game, right? Where skill is the fundamental ability to do something. right? You can learn a lot about, read a lot about physics, but unless you are able to solve HC Verma, you don't have the skills, right? And then comes the attitude. वो तो मैं solve भी नहीं कर सकता हूँ. I don't know anybody can, because attitude is a very long game, right? It takes years to change you as a person, right? But what we can definitely do is think about skills, think about the fundamental abilities we are trying to create in learners. So this is a very basic framework of how a skill cycle looks like, right? You see, content happens to be just one piece of it, which is instructions. But what happens after that? You should do some task, something related to a real world scenario, which is actually important. And then you need some assessment. How did you do the task? Are you improving? And then finally, you'll be given a feedback, and then you improve and you move again and again in the same cycle, unless you start seeing a drastic improve in your ability, right? This is how this works. And I'm going to talk about two world famous products, Duolingo and Codecademy. Has anybody heard of or used Duolingo? Right, everybody knows that. And Codecademy is also a similar product focused on computer science courses. They have best in the world engagement. They stand right outside in terms of retention, in terms of graduation rates. And they're always on top. Even if you take out your Android phone, Duolingo still would will stack on the top, right? What are they doing? You see that when you open, if you've used Duolingo, they don't have any videos, they don't have any explicit content. They start with a very simple task. These are 4 or 5 objects. This is how it is. These are pronounced in French. And let's get to the exercises, right? So you're given the task to translate very quickly. Then you're evaluated on simple mapping and you're given direct feedback. What's happening here? The purpose of the person downloading Duolingo was to get familiar with one language. They started doing that. You can start seeing that improvement. Similarly with Codecademy, it's amazing that some pretty complex topics like machine learning, AI are being taught in this fashion with absolutely very small amount of content, very diving directly into code, and they're asking very first principle type of questions, which does not require any prerequisites, right? And directly you're getting feedback. Imagine the happiness for somebody who has never coded in life, and 30 minutes into this session, they are actually able to code and get output, right? That's an improvement a learner is looking for in themselves, right? So why does this mechanism work? So I'm sure you've heard of IKEA, right? The famous furniture brand. There is this cognitive bias which is actually being named after them, IKEA effect, which is essentially that when users actually build product with you, they place a disproportionate more value in the product. That's what happens with these apps as well. When you are doing these tasks, when you are learning by doing, essentially you are trying to create your profile, yourself, and you start placing a high value on the product, right? So that's why this works. And your product strategy sort of looks for these apps like this. Minimum content. I'm not going to go through 5 minutes, 10 minutes videos before the first exercise, but directly jump to learn by doing, early learner success as a result of it, and then extremely high retention, right? So this is all cool, but I've been asked this question a lot. But the content isn't content the MVP of my product? I've just started out building. I'm building the new course. Isn't MVP just content, right? Can I just not get started with this? So I have a very good example. If you have to make a car, what would be the right MVP? A skateboard or an engine? Obviously a skateboard, because it solves the problem from getting to point A to point B, right? And not an engine. Even if you build a whole engine, you would still not help the user get from point A to point B. So skateboard happens to be a better solution because solving the learner's problem of getting from point A to point B, rather than an engine. Similarly, content, right? Content is an engine. It's an important piece of the cycle. It starts with it, but it's not the end of the game, right? So let's dive into some behavioral science, how this works, why, how you can actually think of creating such loops in your products. And by the way, this is also useful in, as I said, multiple other areas as well. So happy to chat after this talk in case you want to apply this in your industry. So this is a framework given by BJ Fogg, which happens to be one of the famous behavioral scientists in Stanford. And it essentially says that if you want to change behavior, the three things that are important. One is motivation. How much incentives, how much excited the user is or the learner is to do the task. Ability, how easy it is, ease of use, right? And when these two things are obvious, then that's where triggers succeed, right? So it follows certain hyperbolic function, but what it essentially says is that if you improve, if you're able to find new motivations, or you are able to increase the ability, the results are drastic, right? It's not a linear function. It looks something like this. So thereby, if you are improving ability by 2x, maybe you are decreasing motivation by multifold. And similarly, if you are increasing motivation, then perhaps you're solving for ability. And triggers happen to be your notifications, your banner ads, essentially reminders to do the task if their motivation and ability is in place, right? So consumption product optimized for ability. I'll make it super simple to order food on my app. Things will start to fall in place, right? But investment products will have to work on motivation, right? And solving for motivation is a discovery problem, and it's not equivalent to saying. So a lot of people say that, how do I increase motivation for my learners? How do I increase motivation for our users? You cannot increase or decrease motivation. You have to find motivations. Motivations already exist in their lives. You cannot motivate them. This is, again, that's the difference between the industries. If you look at e-commerce, if you look at food, you can actually make it easier for them by giving a discount. But if you give a discount, nobody's coming and learning and doing the hard work on your app, right? So I'll give you an example. I hope everybody remembers their college days. You should study, happens to be a common thing. You should study, exams are coming close. The motivation is sort of low. Exam timetable is out. Okay, पढ़ लेंगे, ठीक है. No campus placements if you fail. So the motivation is there, right? You did not motivate them. They already understand, they already know. You have to discover that motivation for them, right? So you have to understand, you have to discover them. This comes by user research. This comes by talking to them, you're doing multiple experiments. But don't be in this fallacy that you will be able to increase somebody's motivation. It's very hard. I mean, Sandeep Maheshwari is not able to do it, so let alone anybody else, let alone your app or push notifications, right? So try and figure out what motivates them fundamentally. Things would start to fall in place automatically, right? So triggers happens to be the reminders, etc. So I'll give a very quick framework that will help you design triggers, maybe classify current triggers or notifications that you already have. So there are two basic axes: purpose and tone. Purpose is it push or pull? Which is, do you want your learners to explore more, or do you want users to do a specific thing, which is pull? And tone is obviously positive, negative, which is, are you trying to condition their mental model for long-term, sustainability, or perhaps negative, which is very short-term actions, complete this exercise, etc. Right? So you can perhaps classify how your communication is in one of these things. A certain set of learners in certain industries would actually perhaps fall into one of these quadrants. So push, positive, negative, pull, positive, negative. You can see that what I'm trying to say, right? Push and positive, come on, we know you can do it, right? Push and negative, show us if you can actually do it. Pull and positive, life-changing opportunity ahead, go and apply. Pull and negative, only 5 slots left, we are not going to wait for you. So that's about overall how to do tasks. So essentially motivation. You can't really work on ability, you can make it simpler. easier, but believe me, the real hard work learner has to do, then only they can improve. What you can do is discover motivation, figure out right kind of triggers, and make people do tasks on your product in their context. If they're not doing, they'll not learn. If they not learn, they'll not improve. After that, the couple of more stages, if you remember, evaluation, right? So a lot of people say that it's hard to evaluate. How can I evaluate some complex task, some complex case study that you have given? There are multiple ways of doing that, by the way, right? Of course, if you are very tech savvy, maybe go ahead, explore AI as an answer to these solutions. But there are other things as well, right? If you have learner community, they can do the evaluation, right? They can vote on certain evaluations and help each other. If you have a community or supply of experts, they can do that for you. And if nothing, if you cannot furbish anything, at least give them a self assessment kind of a way so that they can improve themselves, right? And finally, feedback, right? Once you have evaluated them, the next job is how they're going to improve, right? So the most basic always works kind of a framework is this: tell them what worked really well, right? Start with a positive note. Then show what can be improved, what specific areas that you want to improve. There could be n number of things, but choose the most important aspect. Lastly, justify why it is important. Why working on these skills will really help you get to the outcome that you're looking for. And lastly, give them examples on how you can actually improve that. So lastly, you should look your product, your EdTech product, in terms of these skill cycles. Stop looking it as a consumer-led application, which the person has to come and consume content in order to be successful or attend classes to be successful. That's okay, but that's just one part of it, right? There are other aspects. So start thinking of it as what are the different skills that I want my learners to have. Do they have those skills or not? And what will happen is one of these skilling cycles will be your aha moment, where those learners will actually start to stick, will actually start to feel that, okay, now this is a serious improvement. I didn't know this could actually happen, right? So that is how your holistic EdTech development should happen, and that's where people would love to stay and stick to your product, but not essentially just talking about how fancy your videos are or how trainer led it could be or how many live classes we can conduct. So I'll talk about a few examples. Duolingo, we've already covered, but mostly contentless. It's absolutely no content there. Very short skill cycles. Learners start to see improvement right away, right? They start seeing that they are able to learn new language. They can maybe flaunt in front of their friends, etc. Result, most retentive app, 55% of D1 retention rate a couple of years back. So that is the power of improving learners, even though in small cycles. Code Academy, again, minimum content, first principle tasks aimed at developing coding skills. No prerequisites required. They don't know where you're coming from, but absolutely sure that you can perform a task just by using your first principle skills. Again, top education app in App Store for multiple times. And some shameless plug here, my app Able. So we are an upskilling platform for young graduates to get jobs in areas like sales, marketing, operations, and finance. So the challenge with us is a lot of subjective questions. How do we evaluate? We worked hard to create an AI feedback system. So what do they do in the real app? They actually perform the answers. For example, giving real HR answers, and our AI sends them something like this, a personalized feedback on what they need to improve. As a result, we have great graduation rates and extremely proud of it. So lastly, software is eating education. The next big company in EdTech will not be a content company, it will be a software company. The content game is over. There are few players who came with great content, users loved it. But if you want to innovate further, if you want to make your mark, then perhaps software is the way, which is how are you going to create fundamentally new products that enable people to learn by doing tasks, projects, and then getting feedback on how to improve themselves. So that was my time. Thank you. But caution, this was just content. So you have to do the task. Thank you.